Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She said it at Applebee's, right in front of her friends. You're not a man if you need touch to feel loved. They laughed. I didn't. I just stared at my drink until the ice stopped moving. Something in me shut off that night, not because of what she said, but because of how easily it came out. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd been waiting for the perfect audience. Her name's Emily. Fitness coach, 28, always online. Every meal was a photo, every mirror a confession. Her world fit inside a square grid. Mine was the opposite. I built systems that worked silently, code, order, structure. I liked things that stayed private, predictable. We met somewhere in the middle once, until her followers became more important than my presence. At first, it was small. Comments from a guy under her workout videos. Fire emojis, little inside jokes. I noticed, of course. You can't work in tech and not notice patterns. Then came the stories, short clips, smiles angled for someone else. Not for me. That night after dinner, she posted a photo. Gym mirror, messy bun, caption, strong women don't chase validation. The same man reacted with a heart. She replied with a wink. I didn't confront her. I just turned off my iPhone screen and listened to the quiet. Next morning, she was sipping Starbucks, scrolling through notifications like she was feeding on them. I asked her something simple, like, when was the last time we actually talked without phones? She didn't look up. Said, you're too emotional lately. You overthink everything. Funny thing is, she wasn't wrong. I was thinking, just not about feelings, about patterns, timing, behavior. She posted 3 stories a day, averaged 40 replies, and always pinned the same name on top. It wasn't love she was chasing. It was proof. That weekend, she went to Target with her friend. I stayed home and checked our shared photos, hundreds of them. Then I noticed what she'd started doing. Untagging me, one by one. Quietly erasing me, like a file she didn't need anymore. When she got back, she tossed the bags on the couch and said, "You're distant lately." I said nothing. Just watched her move around the living room, glowing in that soft Instagram light. I realized I wasn't watching my girlfriend anymore. I was watching a performer who couldn't tell where the stage ended. I didn't argue, didn't ask. That's not how this kind of betrayal works. You don't fight it, you observe it. And once you've seen enough, you stop showing up. That night, I lay awake next to her, the blue light from her screen flickering across my face. Every time it lit up, another message from him. She smiled in her sleep. And that was the moment I decided. The next notification she'd miss would be mine. She didn't notice the shift at first. It started quietly, the way a system begins shutting down one background process at a time. I stopped reacting to her stories. No likes, no replies, no small fire emojis she could count on. Silence is louder than any argument. I watched how she checked her phone after posting, refreshing the screen, waiting for my name to appear among the first 10. It didn't, and I could see the confusion start to build. I worked from home that week, code on one monitor, her feed open on the other. The comments kept coming. She replied to every one, smiling into the camera, using that same tone she once saved for me. But the more attention she got, the less alive it felt. I saw it now. The algorithm was feeding her ego while starving her soul. And I was done playing audience. On Friday night, she went live from our living room. Same music, same soft lighting from a candle she got at Target. She was doing a Q&A about relationships, answering questions from strangers with the kind of confidence that only comes from pretending. I listened as she said, "A real man doesn't need physical touch to feel loved. He just knows." The comments exploded with hearts. I turned off my screen and felt something inside me click. That night, I backed up everything. Messages, photos, shared folders. Then I created a new account. Empty, private, invisible. My digital escape hatch. She was asleep beside me, phone still glowing in her hand. I looked at her and realized the connection between us wasn't broken. It had been quietly replaced. What used to be intimacy had become interaction. The next morning, she noticed I hadn't tagged her in my weekend plans. I told her I had too much work, that I needed focus. She nodded but kept glancing at my phone, as if waiting for proof that I was still orbiting her online. I wasn't. When she left for her gym session, I deleted our shared photos, disconnected my accounts, and changed every password linked to her. Then I logged out of hers completely. No more story views. No more quiet tracking of what she posted. My world went silent, clean, almost sterile. Hours later, she texted me a photo of herself at Starbucks, holding her drink, writing "Miss you." I didn't open it. I didn't block her either. Just let the message sit there, unread, like an echo fading out. By Sunday, she'd started to notice the absence. Her stories were shorter, her smiles tighter. And when she finally posted a mirror selfie with that same caption, "Some people can't handle strong women," I saw it for what it was. Not strength, not confidence, just the sound of someone realizing they'd lost their favorite audience. It was strange how fast silence becomes addictive. I didn't realize how much of my life had been spent reacting, liking, commenting, answering messages that didn't matter. The moment I stepped out of that loop, my head cleared. No notifications, no digital noise, just the hum of the server rack in my office and the sound of rain against the window. She tried to pull me back in with small hooks. A tagged memory from last summer. A post about loyalty with a caption that read, "Some men disappear when you need them most." It wasn't subtle. She was fishing for attention, using guilt as bait. But I had already learned her rhythm, the way she performed heartbreak for engagement. It wasn't personal. It was strategy. Monday morning, I watched her upload another story from the gym. I wasn't following her anymore, but people sent screenshots. They said she'd started working with a new trainer, a guy with that same username I'd seen in her DMs. She laughed in his videos now, the same way she used to with me. Only this time, it looked forced, like she was performing the memory of what she'd lost. I didn't confront her. There was no point. The truth doesn't need confrontation. It just needs clarity. I went to the kitchen, poured coffee into my old Starbucks mug, and opened my laptop. My company had offered a relocation package months ago. Back then, I said no because of her. Now, I wrote the email, "I'm ready to move." It was the cleanest message I'd ever sent. That night, she came home later than usual. I heard her moving around, checking her phone over and over. The silence between us had weight now, like the air before a storm. She finally spoke, said she felt like I wasn't there anymore. I almost laughed at the irony. She was right, but not in the way she thought. I was there physically, but my presence, the part she used to feed on, was gone. When she fell asleep, I opened her Instagram one last time. The last photo of us was still there, buried under hundreds of new posts. Same smiles, same filters, but none of it looked real anymore. I stared at the image for a long minute before removing the final tag that connected me to her. In the morning, she woke up to a feed where my name no longer existed. Her first message came quick. "Did you unfollow me?" I didn't answer. I just put the phone face down and walked outside. The world felt lighter. For the first time in months, I wasn't competing with a screen. When I finally disappeared, it wasn't dramatic. There was no last message, no speech, no closure. Just quiet deletion. I started with the small things, muted her number, archived our chats, wiped old photos from my drive. Every action felt like reclaiming oxygen. By the time I was done, her existence in my world was reduced to a faint memory in the cloud. She had spent months performing affection for strangers online. I decided to give her the one thing she could never perform: absence. The first few days after vanishing were predictable. She posted motivational quotes about self-worth, captions about healing. I didn't check them, but people sent screenshots like they were updates on a war I'd already left. Her tone was calm at first, controlled. But control is hard to maintain when your validation goes unanswered. Soon, the post shifted from confidence to confusion. Each story looked a little less polished. By the end of the week, she texted me. Not a long message, just a simple "hey." I didn't open it. The next one came a few hours later. "Can we talk?" Still nothing. Then a third. "I just want to understand." That was the first honest sentence she'd sent in months. But honesty delivered too late is still dishonesty in slow motion. I'd moved my workstation to a new apartment across town by then. It wasn't fancy, but it was quiet. The kind of quiet you can think in. My Ford F-150 was parked outside, half-packed with boxes. The city lights reflected off the hood like old memories refusing to fade. I poured myself another cup of coffee and watched the phone light up across the room. I didn't move. The phone had become her last lifeline to me, and I wasn't cutting it. I was just letting it die on its own. A friend texted me that she'd shown up at the gym looking lost, scrolling through her phone between sets, refreshing her messages like a ritual. For someone who lived in constant exposure, silence was punishment she didn't understand. And that's when I realized I didn't need revenge. I just needed peace. On the fourth night, she posted a story, nothing fancy, just a dark room, a single candle, captioned, "Missing old energy." It was the first thing she'd posted that felt real. And I felt nothing. No anger, no nostalgia, just clarity. She used to crave my touch to feel validated. Now she craved my absence to feel real. It didn't take long for the silence to turn into noise on her side. When someone builds their identity around attention, the absence of it feels like suffocation. I didn't watch her directly anymore, but people talked. Screenshots floated around like ghosts, her posts, her captions, her small attempts to reach me through implication. Some men confuse distance with strength. Sometimes silence is manipulation. Every line was bait. Every sentence was proof that the silence was working. I'd changed everything by then. New address, new number, new rhythm. My days started early. Gym, work, long drives with no music. I liked the sound of the road more than I ever liked her voice. The Ford was loaded with boxes from my old life, and every mile I drove felt like erasing another memory. The city faded behind me, replaced by quiet suburbs and clean air. I was free in a way she'd never understand. But freedom has its echoes. One night, I opened my old Instagram out of habit. The profile was still deactivated, but curiosity has a way of testing your resolve. I reactivated it just for a minute, long enough to see that she'd made her account public again. Her feed looked the same: workout clips, motivational quotes, fake laughter. But buried between the filters was something new, a photo of us, from years ago, suddenly unarchived. Captioned, "Not every loss is loud." That hit differently, not because I missed her, but because it confirmed something I'd suspected. She wasn't healing, she was performing grief. Every self-love post was a cry for the audience to validate her again. She needed sympathy now the way she once needed desire. I logged out without liking or saving anything. I wasn't tempted to go back. I just wanted to confirm that the stage lights were still on. They were. She hadn't learned a thing. The next morning, a mutual friend called. Said she'd been asking about me. Not directly, just how's he doing, and is he seeing anyone? I told him to tell her the truth, that I was fine, focused, quiet. He laughed and said, "That's what scares her." And maybe he was right. My disappearance wasn't about punishment. It was about balance. She betrayed me in digital space, so I erased myself from it. No drama, no speeches, just deletion. The one thing she couldn't control. The one place she couldn't follow. The strange thing about vanishing is how people eventually fill the silence with their own stories. Some said I left her for someone else. Others said I couldn't handle a strong woman. None of it bothered me. Every rumor made the distance between us grow wider, more permanent. She needed attention to exist. I just needed quiet to recover. Weeks passed, and the messages stopped coming. Then one night, she broke the silence. Not to me, but to everyone. She posted a long caption under a photo of herself, makeup smudged, staring into the mirror. "Healing isn't linear," she wrote. "Sometimes you lose someone who never understood your worth." Thousands of comments poured in. Sympathy, fire emojis, encouragement. But buried between them was one I didn't expect, from the same guy she used to flirt with. "You deserve better," he wrote. And for the first time, I felt nothing at all. A few days later, a mutual friend sent me a message. "You should see what's happening." I ignored it, but curiosity won. I opened Instagram from a burner account and saw it. Her new post had turned into a debate. People were asking questions she didn't want to answer. Someone noticed the overlap between her timelines, how the flirty comments started months before our breakup. The digital footprints were catching up to her. That was the beauty of silence. I didn't have to expose her. The truth was doing it on its own. Every untagged photo, every deleted comment, every half-hearted denial, it all built a picture she couldn't curate. People weren't defending her anymore. They were studying her. The story she tried to control had slipped away. By then, I had stopped checking completely. My life was simple again. Early runs, long nights of coding, breakfast at the same Waffle House off the highway. The waitress didn't ask questions, and that was enough. I started to enjoy being invisible. One night, as I was finishing dinner, my phone buzzed. A new message request. It was her. No emojis this time. Just 4 words. I really miss you. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then turned the phone over. I didn't delete the message. I just let it sit there, unread, the digital version of silence. Somewhere out there, she was still performing pain for the world. But I knew better. Pain fades when it's real. What she felt now wasn't pain. It was withdrawal. From me. From attention. From everything that used to feed her. And for the first time, she had no audience left. The silence had stretched long enough to become a kind of peace. My life was running smooth again. Simple routines, quiet evenings, no noise from the outside world. I'd stopped checking anything connected to her. No curiosity, no temptation. Until one night, when my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but the voice that followed froze me for a second. It was hers. She sounded smaller, uncertain. I just wanted to hear your voice, she said. I miss the way things used to be. Then a pause, soft breathing, and the faint sound of her crying before the line went dead. I didn't call back. Instead, I sat there, letting the weight of it settle. Months ago, that message would have pulled me back in. Now it just sounded like another story she was trying to tell. The difference was, I wasn't her audience anymore. A week later, I ran into one of her old gym clients at Starbucks. She said Emily had stopped teaching classes, that she looked tired all the time. The sparkle was gone. The online energy that made people follow her had faded. The woman asked if we were still together. I said, not really. She nodded and whispered, she's not the same since you left. That night, I opened her page one last time. The same grid of photos, but different somehow. The filters couldn't hide the exhaustion. The comments were slower now, fewer likes, less engagement. She tried to rebuild, but the algorithm had already moved on. I scrolled through the captions. New beginnings, learning to love myself. He taught me silence. That last one stopped me. I stared at it longer than I meant to. Maybe she finally understood what the silence was meant to show her. Not revenge, not rejection, just a reflection of what she'd created. When you replace real intimacy with digital validation, the crash is inevitable. The attention fades, but the emptiness stays. I closed her profile for good. No block, no report, just a quiet exit. Then I drove my truck down to the lake, parked by the water, and watched the sun fall behind the horizon. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I'd lost something. I felt like I'd reclaimed it. Somewhere across the city, she was probably refreshing her feed, waiting for my name to appear again. But it never would. Because this time, I wasn't disappearing out of pain. I was disappearing out of peace. It had been months since I'd heard her voice, but the world has a strange way of circling back when you least expect it. One Thursday afternoon, while grabbing a few things at Walmart, I saw her. She was standing in the checkout line, holding a basket that looked too heavy for her now. No phone in her hand. No camera angled toward the light. Just her. Real, quiet, smaller somehow. She looked up, and for a moment our eyes met. She froze. I didn't. I just gave a small nod and turned to pay. No words, no tension. Just two people who finally saw what distance really looked like. Outside, the air was cold. I could hear her footsteps behind me before I even reached the parking lot. She called my name once, then again, softer. I stopped, but I didn't turn. I could hear her breathing. The same voice that used to control every room now sounded unsure. She said she'd been meaning to reach out, that she'd changed, that she finally understood. I didn't interrupt her. I just let her talk until her words slowed, until the silence between us felt heavier than her apology. She stepped closer, said she missed the way things were before everything got loud. She asked if I ever missed her too. I could have lied. I could have given her the closure she wanted. Instead, I said the only thing that mattered. I don't miss what I had to lose myself to keep. Her eyes dropped, and I saw it. The exact moment she realized she'd lost something she couldn't rebuild with followers, filters, or attention. She tried to hug me, reaching out like muscle memory, but I stepped back. Not harshly, not angry, just a calm refusal. The hug she wanted didn't exist anymore. The man who would have given it to her had vanished the same way she once erased me from her posts. Quietly, efficiently, completely. We stood there for a few seconds that felt longer than our entire relationship. Then I got into my truck and drove away. I didn't look in the mirror. Later that night, she posted a photo, a sunset, no filter, no caption. It was the first time she'd shared something that looked unedited. People commented heart emojis, asking if she was okay. She didn't reply. Maybe she finally understood that silence isn't punishment. It's the last boundary you leave behind when words stop meaning anything. After that day at Walmart, I thought that would be the end of it. But endings are never clean when emotions rot in the silence. A few days later, I got a text from her number. It wasn't dramatic, just a line that said, "Can we meet? Just talk." I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I let it stay there, unopened, like every other piece of our unfinished past. Then came the stories. Her page, which had gone quiet for weeks, lit up again. Only this time, it wasn't the old version of her. No perfect angles, no laughter. Just long captions about accountability, regret, and learning to choose better. People praised her vulnerability, left encouraging comments. But I could see it clearly. The sadness wasn't for the audience. It was for herself. One post hit harder than the rest. A photo of her old gym, empty, captioned, "You can't build strength in a place you broke trust." I stared at that for a long time. Not because I believed her, but because I knew she finally understood what she'd lost. Real connection. Not likes, not messages, but someone who actually saw her beyond the lens. A mutual friend told me she'd stopped working entirely. Said she'd deleted half her posts, started journaling, even tried therapy. The old trainer she flirted with had moved on, blocked her. The online world that once gave her power now reminded her of everything she'd destroyed chasing it. I was at Waffle House one night when she walked in. Alone, no makeup, hair tied back. She didn't notice me at first. When she did, she froze again, same as before. That flicker of surprise followed by the quiet understanding that I wasn't going to move toward her. She gave a small, hesitant smile, like she wanted to show she'd changed. I nodded once, polite, distant. Then I turned back to my plate. I could feel her watching me from across the room, searching for any sign of softness, any hint that she still had a hold on me. But there was nothing left for her to reach. I wasn't angry anymore, and that's what made it final. Anger still means attachment. Indifference means freedom. When I left, she didn't follow. She just sat there, staring down at her coffee, lost in the quiet she used to call strength. The kind of silence that doesn't heal, it haunts. Weeks passed after that night, and I didn't see her again. Life had settled into something quiet, almost rhythmic. Work, gym, long drives, nights that ended with peace instead of arguments. I didn't think about her much anymore, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to think about. She'd become a closed tab in a browser I no longer opened. But peace has a strange way of being interrupted. One evening, I was sitting outside a small diner off the highway when her message came through. It wasn't from her old number. She must have changed it. The text was long, but the first line froze me. "I finally understand what you meant about silence." The rest was a confession written too late. She said she'd lost herself trying to be seen, that every like, every comment had felt like oxygen until it wasn't. She wrote about the emptiness that came when the screen went dark and the realization that I'd been the only real thing in her life. The message ended with, "I don't want to fix it. I just wanted you to know I see it now." I read it twice. Then once more, slowly, like I was reading a language I used to know. For a moment, I could almost hear her voice, the one from before everything fell apart. Soft, certain, full of light. I thought about replying, maybe something simple like, "I'm glad you see it." But I didn't. Not out of cruelty, but because some stories need to end quietly to mean something. Instead, I watched the sunset through the windshield of my truck, the same Ford that had carried me away from her months ago. The sky burned orange, fading into the kind of darkness that feels earned. I realized I wasn't angry, or nostalgic, or even proud. I was simply done. The silence between us wasn't punishment anymore, it was peace. Later that night, I checked her page out of habit. It was empty. Every post gone. Just a blank profile picture and one final line in the bio, "Learning to be real, offline." I smiled. Maybe she finally got it. I turned off my phone and sat in the dark for a while. The hum of the diner behind me, the sound of cars passing on the road ahead. For the first time, I felt completely still. She had her closure, and I had mine. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.